So recently, there was this guy who supports me on Patreon who sent me this DM, right? Now, I get a lot of messages to my regular email. I get like about between 10 and 20 a day. I can't answer them. They're just simply too many. But on Patreon, I try to answer, in point of fact, I do answer every single DM because I figure that's part of the service, if you will, right? But, you know, I will answer a missive, a letter, maybe a couple of paragraphs, but this was like a novel, for crying out loud. It's paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff. Background, this, that, his problems and whatnot. You know, at the end he said, you know, this guy wrote to me and he said, what do I do? What do I do? And of course, you know, it's just too long. It would have taken me at least like a good 15 minutes to have read it, let alone, you know, process all of it and give him an answer. And so I just wrote back to him, you know, TLDR, why don't you give me the bullet points? And then something really interesting happened. The guy wrote me right back and he said, don't worry, coach, I figured it out. Really? I answered back. Yeah, he said. He said that what had happened was that in the process of writing out his problem, he had figured out the solution. And this is something that I've noticed happens all the time. In point of fact, it happens to me. I've kept journals over the years, the decades at this point, right? But I only ever really write down stuff when I'm a bit confused or I don't know what I'm doing. And more to the point, the periods of my life when I have not written down stuff, you know, sort of like explained on paper, written out with my own hand, what's been going on in my life and what the problems have been in my life, well, those are the periods of my life when I was most confused about what I was doing. The very act of writing out my problems often has not allowed me to see the solution to my problem. And that's what happened to this guy who'd written to me on Patreon. Yeah. The very act of him writing this huge letter, it was damn huge. I mean, like I said, it was like pages and pages of stuff, right? The very act of doing that and filling in the background and explaining the situation and whatnot, right, allowed him to see it with objectivity. And once he saw it with objectivity, once he had distanced himself from the problem, he could look at it and say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Whenever you're in a quandary, whenever you don't know what to do, you're confused, you're messed up, you feel that your life is not going in the right direction, what you do is you write out a letter. You write a letter as if to a very smart friend who doesn't quite know all the background of what's going on, but knows enough, okay? That way you don't waste time explaining things that are quite obvious and simple, and you spend your time focusing on those things that are complex or the crux of the matter. You see what I'm saying? Write that letter and think of an actual friend, okay? You don't have to actually send them the letter. You can think of a friend that you might have or some acquaintance that you once knew or something and write out that letter to them, addressing it to them, so that in your head you have a mental audience, so that you know whom you are writing for, okay? And you write this letter and, like I said, you never send it, but it's for yourself. It's basically a letter to yourself. And you will find that you solve your problems. Yeah, because what happens is that the act of writing forces you to organize the events and the issues into a logical framework, a framework that makes sense. And once you are forced to do that, you start looking at each of these different elements that you are putting down on paper in a much more dispassionate way. Ultimately, it's our emotions that cloud our judgment. Our emotions, our fears and worries and this and that and the other that make things confusing for us. But by putting it down on paper and writing it towards some audience, some designated person who you figure would be a good judgment, even if it's only in your head, because of course this is a mental exercise. By doing that, you tear away the emotional baggage that you have with the issue. And you start looking at the actual crux of the matter. Now, of course, this approach takes discipline, okay? I mean, you actually have to write out the letter, right? And you have to write it out. And by the way, I suggest you don't do it on your computer. I suggest you write it out on a piece of paper, right? Because what you'll find is that many times when you write on a computer, see, the computer you can just write all over the place. But when you write by hand, longhand, on a sheet of paper, it forces you, before you even start writing, to organize your thoughts, When you're on a computer, you can just like pour out the words and just like throw words like throwing crap at a wall. And it doesn't really matter, and it absorbs everything, right? And you say, oh, well, I'll fix it up here and I'll fix it up there, but you lose the sense of it. Whereas if you write it out in longhand on a piece of paper or a notebook or what have you, you force yourself before you start writing to organize your head, to figure out where to start and how you're going to address your imaginary audience and tell them the problem that you're experiencing. Tell them the dilemma that you have. Tell them the thing that you're trying to solve, the issue that's at hand. You see what I'm saying? You write it out in longhand. And if the first draft of it doesn't work, if you write one version of this and you're still not clear, write another one. Yeah, just do it again. Just set the first version that you did, set it aside, and turn and start writing a second one, a completely new one, okay? And if that second one doesn't help, which is very, very unlikely, by the way, but if that second version doesn't help, set that one aside and do a third one. By the third one, you'll be fixed, you'll be solved. The problem will be clear in your head, which is the whole point of the exercise, okay? The whole point of the exercise is for you to gain some clarity as to a situation that is vexing you. You want to have clarity so that you can make the right decisions, so that you can take the right course of action long term and not be distracted by the short term. Now this of course is difficult, okay? This exercise of writing out what's going on in your life, it's not an easy thing. But of course, see, everything good in life is necessarily difficult. See, if everything good in life were easy, then it would be no trick now, would it? Yeah. You know, I don't quite know how it is that all the good things in life are difficult to come by, but that's the way it is, so we got to live with it, okay? Doing this is difficult. It takes discipline. It takes time and effort. But you want to be doing this. You want to be doing this consistently whenever you have problems in your life. I'm not a big fan, I myself do not have like a daily diary. I have notebooks, you know, you've probably seen them whenever I'm filming, right? Notebooks where I write crap, you know, like lists of things that I have to do, or potential videos, for instance, or whatnot. Every once in a while, I'll write out longhand how my life is going at any particular moment. But it can be days, weeks even, sometimes even months, where I don't write a thing in the notebook. And the notebook that I have is just to aid me in remembering things that are going on in my life. You know, what groceries to get and crap like that, right? But whenever I have a problem, I do it, and it is difficult. And I'm a professional writer, for crying out loud. But it is difficult. It's difficult to write out the problems that you have. But this discipline is necessary. It's necessary because, see, it is very easy to lose yourself in the moment and start living moment to moment. Like playing a game of whack-a-mole with your life. You know, when you're playing whack-a-mole, right, you're not thinking of the long term. You're just thinking of hitting the next, you know, hedgehog that pops up in the machine, right? It's a lot of fun. It's a great distraction. You know, you go to a county fair or whatever and you play that game. Yeah, sure. It's great to play that game. But in real life, to have your life be a game of whack-a-mole, you don't want that. You want to impose some structure on it, some order, and most especially order in your head, so that you can go in the direction that you want to go. Yeah? Because if you're just playing whack-a-mole, hitting things at random just because they pop up, right? You're just reacting to life, as opposed to going in the direction that you want to go. Going in the direction that you want to go, living the life that you want to be living, with the people that you want in your life, in the circumstances that you want. See? Because ultimately that's the goal. To get what you want and not what other people impose on you. So many guys live their lives like they're playing a game of whack-a-mole, right? And some of them are very, very effective at this. They're very effective, and to tell you the truth, that was my case. I was so effective at playing a game of whack-a-mole with my life without any kind of clear direction or purpose to it. And I was able to get away with it for quite some time. But as I got older, I started doing things that were just bad decisions, because I would whack one, hedgehog that popped up or whatever in my life, the metaphor continuing, And I would whack it, but that would lead me to do other things that I didn't really want to do, but I find myself doing them because I had no direction. I was just going almost at random. And it's only like, I don't know, in my 40s really, that I started like understanding more the shape of my life, and more importantly, understanding where I wanted to go with my life, how I wanted the arc of my life to continue on into the future. And that's why this exercise that I'm telling you about, which is so trivial in the scheme of your life, right? It's so simple and easy and trivial, but it's so essential because it allows you to gain perspective on your life so that you can direct it where you want to go. You know those greeters at Walmart? They always frighten me. They are the epitome of the man I do not want to be, okay? They really are the thing that frightened me the most. And they are lovely men, okay? I am not knocking them. It's a hard job. It's a hard job for an elderly person to be standing there and greeting people and always smiling and always having that energy, that welcoming energy. And I have nothing but respect and compassion for them. Respect because I recognize that it's a difficult job. It might not seem so, but it is. It's a difficult job. And compassion for them because it is a miserable job. And I mean no disrespect to those men who do it, but it is a miserable job. It's a miserable job for an elderly person to be there, trying to fake camaraderie and a welcoming smile all the time to all these people, all these strangers who really mean nothing to him. It's a hard job. It doesn't pay very well. But those elderly people doing it, it's the best job that they can get because they need the money. They need the money and they're old and they have nothing, or they don't have enough money to live. And so they have this job, and it's like I said, it just terrifies me. And to insist, I am not mocking them, not at all. I respect such men who have to do that, but at the same time, I recognize that they were foolish. They were foolish men who did not consider the arc of their lives. They weren't thinking long term when they had the chance. Don't fall for that trap. Don't fall for that mistake. I will bet that a lot of those men at Walmart, those Walmart greeters, I bet a lot of them are smarter than you and me. I bet you a lot of them had really good jobs, really good businesses, but they weren't thinking long term. I'm sure that in a case or two, it was just incredibly, colossally bad luck, and they had everything clear in their minds as to where they were going, but fate threw them some really nasty curveballs and wiped them out. I'm sure that there are a couple of those cases, but for the most part, most of those men doing that miserable job, it's because they weren't thinking long term. They were just playing whack-a-mole, and they were running like helter-skelter through their own lives without any kind of planning. Don't fall for that trap. Go to the Walmart nearest to you. Meet that man. Meet that greeter. Shake his hand. Talk to him a little bit and ask him how he got there. Ask him how he got there. And then you make sure that you don't make the same mistakes.